Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. Happy New Year. Let's get into the story of the week.
A few weeks ago, we talked about the one-year anniversary of the Idaho murders. For those of you that are unfamiliar, this is a really disturbing case where 4 college students from the University of Idaho were found stabbed to death in their off-campus housing. So, unfortunately, the house that they were murdered in has now been demolished. Both sides, the prosecution and defense, were not really going against this action because they didn't see the point of keeping the house together. They said that the state of the house was so different from when the murders occurred that the jurors would not have been allowed in there anyway. So it's kind of weird. I wonder how this is going to pan out and if there was any evidence possibly in the house that they're now going to miss because the house is no longer there before this trial starts. So what are your thoughts on this?
I kind of understand why they want to knock it down, even though it's an off-campus house. All of the students still live around there and kind of walk by it all the time. And obviously, it's almost a morbid tourist attraction at this point. So it just gains a lot of attention. The students walk by it and are triggered by the horrific things that happen there. And that's why the owner of the house actually donated the house to the school, and the school decided they wanted to get rid of it. Apparently the prosecution and the defense are cool with the fact that they got enough evidence, but I 100% understand the family being against this because this guy hasn't been convicted yet, and he also is a criminology student. So who knows? We always say that we think that this dude's got something up his sleeve as far as the trial going and getting out of this somehow. So I think right now it's the worst nightmare of any parent to know that your child was murdered, and the fact that it's not closed yet, that this guy isn't in jail and whatever else is going to come of him getting prosecuted. I think I would be fighting for it too. And unfortunately, they didn't win the fight.
Yeah, so they're saying that they plan to demolish the house in the summertime, but Bryan Kohberger, who is the arrested suspect currently in this case, his defense attorneys had argued that it stay up a little longer because they wanted ample time to go through it and collect any evidence they needed for their case. So as recently as a few days before the demolition, they were in there collecting evidence and going through it. I think the biggest thing for the parents is they understand that the house might look different, but they wanted to keep it intact to see if they could prove if the roommates that were there that weren't killed could hear from the different rooms. And I feel like as a juror, it would be really nice to get a sense of the space in real life and see exactly what went down, what rooms were happening, what was in earshot. I do think that was an important detail. How this guy got in the house and how this was executed by stabbing 4 different people to death. So I think it's really sad, and the university's planning to build a memorial garden on the site, so it is nice that they are going to repurpose it and honor the victims, but I just wonder what this all means.
Yeah, this case has especially been on my mind this week because Bryan Kohberger was caught by police around this time last year, and it was just so shocking to see how they found him. And I just remember when they put his photograph on the news, I was just freaked out by his appearance. There's something so crazy about his eyes, and it really kind of shook me a little bit. And I'm really into this case because it's so scary how it all went down. And as a mom of children, that one that's already been through college, but 2 more that are probably going to go to college, it scares the shit out of me. And I'm sure many of you listening also have kids that are not living at home. And it's just scary to think that there's a potential person stalking your child and that's going to kill them with a knife. It's so sad. All right, let's get into the celebrity news of the week.
This first celebrity story is really unfortunate. So Aaron Carter's sister, Bobby Jean, has now been found dead. In an eerie way, she was found unresponsive in her bathroom just like Aaron Carter, who had died last year, and just like their other sibling who had died around a decade ago. So all of them were found. She is allegedly overdosed to death. There's still confirmation on that, but she had issues with drugs in the past. Aaron Carter had the problems with drugs. The other sister had issues with drugs. It's really sad to see that there are now 3 siblings dead in one family, and it just, what is going on over there?
Well, I think it's important to say, like, who the hell this person is, because I only know of her because of Aaron Carter, and I think for people that aren't 100% familiar with this family, we should probably, I think it's important to talk about who they are, because of their level of fame, I think is the reason why they have so much substance abuse issues.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like they're always in the press for really negative things. And, Nick Carter is the most famous of them, being in Backstreet Boys. And then
so he was the
Aaron
one that
Carter's
started out, right? Like he's the one that brought the family onto the scene, basically.
I believe so. And then all the other siblings have had somewhat success. Angel Carter, who's Aaron Carter's twin sister. So her and Nick are the only surviving siblings out of the 5 of them. But Angel is a model, and it's really unfortunate to see that the 2 of them have had to go through such extreme loss. I believe their mother was in the news for an abusive situation in the last few years, and it just seems like a complete mess, everything that's been going on with the Carter family. So it's really sad to see that a 3rd sibling has now died in a similar manner to the other 2.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if they said exactly how she died, but she had issues leading up to her death with substance abuse, and she just got caught shoplifting at Hobby Lobby, like $50 worth of crafts or something recently. It just sucks, and it shows that sometimes, I mean, you have to say the addiction is definitely runs in the family, but also the fame and the access that a lot of famous VIP people have to these kinds of drugs and stuff really sets them up for a horrible life. And now you got 3 people that died under the age of 50 from drugs. It's sad.
Yeah, so she was found unresponsive in the bathtub, so that's why it was eerily similar to Aaron, but we're still waiting on autopsy results, and we could give an update once we get those to be more conclusive.
All right, so we're going to talk about another case that's super scary. There is a football player. His name is Mike Williams. He was an NFL player, and he died in September. He was only 36 years old, and it kind of obviously like freaks people out when someone dies that young. And his autopsy results just came back, and they said that he died from a brain infection that was secondary to him having a dental procedure.
That's so strange. So can you explain exactly how it led from the dental infection to the brain and how this all transpired?
So it's interesting because I just had this come up. One of my kids, Lillian, who's 10, she had to have a tooth pulled at the dentist, and she hates getting that done. She doesn't like getting the Novocaine and stuff. So she said, basically, Mommy, let me make you a deal. If I could get this tooth out this week, can I just like go home and not get it pulled? So I said, sure, but why not, right? And that kid went home and pulled out like a big molar out of her mouth. And I went in the following week to see the dentist for myself, and I was telling Dr. Don, he's our family dentist, and he said, well, make sure the root came out, because if the root didn't come out, that could cause an infection, and then so you could get an infection if the little points at the end of the tooth don't come out. It could turn into an abscess and then get into the blood, travel throughout the body, and because it's in the mouth and it's so close to the brain, it could travel directly to the brain. So he had something that was completely able to be treated and died from it, and it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's always these horror stories, and, growing up, I had a lot of dental issues as a young child, and they always were like, your gums are so inflamed, you have to take care of your gums or you're going to get heart disease. And I'm like, I don't see how my gums are going to give me heart disease. I think this is just a tall tale. But
no, it's serious. It's your dental care is one of the number one things to make you a healthy person. It's really crazy. It seems silly, but it's not. because these infections can get right into your blood very easily and can kill you. Like in this case, this guy had everything. He was a healthy football player. They did say that he also had maybe some cardiovascular disease that contributed to his death, which doesn't have to be unusual necessarily. Hypertension or high blood pressure is more common in African American males, so that definitely is a possibility that he had some kind of underlying heart disease as well. But the main thing is that if he and like, I don't want to characterize him as just being a dude, but just having a lot of men, especially my dad, around me that like ignore problems that are seemingly small, and you know, maybe he had a toothache and he couldn't get off of doing whatever he was doing with work and just kept blowing it off. And you don't want to pay for the dentist. Some people have fear of the dentist. And then all of a sudden it turned into a big problem.
I think we can agree I have a little bit of white coat syndrome when I go to the doctor, but the dentist is just not one of them. I can't explain it. It's one of those places I'm just so comfortable.
Because you've always gone to a good dentist. Like if you go to a shitty dentist that hurts you and doesn't do the right thing or like screws you over out of money or whatever, like there's people that have to take like Xanax and stuff to get dental work done, like their teeth cleaned.
Well, it's funny because I have such a bad needle phobia, but even when I know I have to get the Novocaine to get something done, Dr. Don, he has that like vibrating thing on your cheek so you don't even feel that you're getting it. I'm like, how can I get this device for any time I need blood taken or anything like that?
All right.
But because doesn't your Botox doctor do that too?
Yeah, he uses that weird, Dr. Dimitri, he uses that weird vibrating tool to give it to you. And I think it mentally like takes the vision off of the needle and puts it into something else. It's just kind of like a mental thing. It's absolutely genius. It's like a distraction. All right, so there's another story this week involving an NFL player. This was during an active game. I hate football and everybody knows that, but I hate seeing these videos that resurface in the news that show people playing football getting injured, and it's so scary. The one with what was his name? Damar Hamlin.
Yeah,
that was last year, right? That was so freaking scary. I hated seeing that. And now this one, this football player named Elijah Moore got tackled, and then when you could see that he visibly has like dirt and grass like embedded in the mask part of his helmet, and he, you know, everyone backs off of him after he gets tackled, and all of a sudden he like starts having a seizure. His arms start flaring in the air, and it's just I just hate football. I'm sorry. I know it's like the biggest American sport, but it's so bad for your head. It's just so bad.
Well, I think we're seeing such a rise in injuries, and you know, with the last couple of years with CTE awareness definitely coming out, and then watching this kid Elijah Moore, it's like he gets, I don't know, something about it. I watch football with my husband, and I see all these guys get tackled, and I could watch boxing matches and MMA and not think anything of it, but something about this injury with Elijah Moore, and last year the Dolphins, their quarterback Tua Tag, I'm not going to say his full last name because I can't possibly pronounce it correctly, but when I watched them get tackled, fall on the ground, and then their arms and fingers kind of crunch together and flop around, that to me seems more painful than getting your whole body shoved in the ground. There's something so disturbing about seeing it, and as usual, they said he passed concussion protocol and he was set to play again very quickly after this accident. So it's really disturbing to see. And I actually wanted to bring up Damar Hamlin because he had a heart episode instead of a brain episode, and I feel like they took that more seriously and gave him more time off to deal with that than they do with these guys with brain injuries.
Yeah. You know what's nuts, actually? I didn't even talk to you about this when I went to the Ernest Hemingway house. We just went to Key West for a couple of days, and the house was just so cool. But Gabe and I listened to a documentary in the car ride about him, and it's really interesting. I didn't even really look it up to see if, like, everybody thinks this guy had chronic traumatic encephalopathy. but he had multiple head injuries from not only serving in war, but also he was in like 2 plane accidents, just all this stuff. And he kind of went nuts at the end of his life, like just was having delusions and maybe even some psychosis. And I'm like, yeah, duh, because he had multiple concussions and brain injuries. It's just a thing. It's like everybody knows it's a thing. And it's so scary. So when you get a traumatic brain injury, that could be anything as small as like a little bruise on your brain, like a concussion, anywhere to a more serious injury. And it could cause you to have a seizure right away, or you could have seizures months later. And it's really scary for people that play football, because there's people that play football their whole lives and they never have an issue. But sometimes you have a kid that's playing football and in high school they get a concussion and they want to continue to play. And it's known that like if you get one, you're probably going to be cool, but any more than one just sets you up for possibly having CTE. And why would you risk that? You're saying, it's like they put so much effort into someone's heart. Obviously it's important, but your brain is equally as important. And they just want to use these dudes as young dudes for their bodies and then leave them being like mentally handicapped or having any kind of like a psychological issue as they get older. It's not cool to me.
Well, there's a serious problem happening in the NFL too, where they have these turf fields and it's causing so many of them to fall and get injured at this astronomical rate versus the fields with real grass. So this is something we're seeing play out in real time, where the players are going against the organization saying we're getting hurt so much more frequently because it's too slippery. Our cleats can't sink into it the same way as regular grass. I wonder if this type of field contributes to some of these excessive concussions we're seeing, and if we're going to see more CTE because there's so many more accidents now that they're slipping all the time.
Yeah, I don't know about it. I don't like it. And I feel like they get paid all this money because like they want to just like use these people, like just use them and just shut them up with money. And it's just not cool. All right. Another story that's been in the news for a couple months now is Blac Chyna. I understand that she's tied to the Kardashians or whatever, but like who is she? A singer? Is she a model? Like I don't really know much about her besides.
I think she was a model / socialite situation. She was just around the right people all the time. She has a child with the Kardashian brother.
I don't
Robert
know if I would
Kardashian.
say she was around the right people, but
well, people to get recognized.
Yeah. So she I love her. I don't know much about her, but I love her because she's going against there's like this trend going against that whole Kardashian like crazy body nonsense. And she came out a couple months ago and said that she was dissolving the fillers in her face. She was getting a breast reduction. Wasn't she like getting her butt made smaller or getting lipo or something? All of these procedures that she had done to look like a freak, like the Kardashians, she started toning down on it. And I love that she's coming out and she looks so much more beautiful now than she did. Because these people go overboard and they look like freaks and they don't look human anymore. She looks beautiful. She looks stunning.
I think she's doing this to get press and keep
Who
relevant.
cares?
I'm serious.
It's good. Who cares?
I know, but it's
better
better
than
to say you love her for going against these trends when she partook in all the trends and then is now going in the new wave of trends, which is being ultra thin, having no boobs, no butt, no fillers.
I don't have a problem with
looking.
it because I feel like having little girls that look at YouTube and shit all the time, I would rather them look at someone like that looks like normal and doesn't look like some kind of a circus freak that they want to look up to. I don't know. Like,
well, people can look however they want to look as long as they're happy with their appearance and not harming their health. That's
your opinion. Okay, so anyway, she had breast reduction surgery and she was coming out to say, listen, you could say whatever you want, but this is good that she talks about this because she had, when you look at people like the Kardashians and stuff who don't even admit that they have surgery or anything done, when you talk about her and getting like desurgerized, it's crazy how many procedures these people have. And surgery is no joke. Her boobs were huge, 585 cc implants that she went down to 385 cc's.
I don't know what that means.
It's
Can
just
you
the
explain
size.
that?
It's the amount of fluid or silicone that's in the implant. So a 585 gram one on, like, all right, for example, like, do you remember when CRISPR got her boobs done? And I went to the office with her for her consult or whatever, and he gave her, she's got implants that big, but she's like a bigger framed girl. So she puts them on and they look like she just has regular big boobs. I take the implant and I put it underneath of my bra and I looked like Dolly Parton. Like, it was hilarious. It was like freakishly, like, people would be like, okay, like, what's happening with that chick, right? So it depends. Like, so what I'm trying to say is that size of an implant can work on certain frames, but on smaller frame girls, it's a huge implant regardless. So what happens is when you get the implant, it stretches your skin out to fit the implant. And the doctor's kind of saying, like, listen, if you go down in implant size, like, your boobs might be kind of like flabby because your skin's stretched out now. So she has to get a breast reduction surgery to kind of get rid of that skin now. It's a lot of surgery and it looks choppy because now you're going to have scars and everything else. And she was saying that when she got the smaller implants that she had a condition called capsular contracture, which is like when you put any kind of foreign body inside of your body just works really hard to get it out, and it forms, especially with implants, it forms what's called a capsule around it, which is like fibrous tissue. It's the body building up a wall against this implant. And sometimes it could get really tight and it could get calcified or like almost it's crunchy if you cut it with scissors, and it could cause the breast to not only be painful, but it causes it to look different than the other breast. And it definitely goes against the appearance that you were looking for. So she might be doing it to stay relevant. She might be doing it, whatever. But like the fact that she talks about, she went through all this plastic surgery and now what she has to go through to get rid of it and all the problems that someone that has all that money and the best surgeons at their disposal, I think is good that she talks about it. That's all. I mean, I don't admire, I don't think that she's like one of the best people to look up to in the world. She's not like Eleanor Roosevelt or something, but like seriously, like,
well, you said you loved her, which I just can't agree with.
But listen, you think, you don't know because you don't have little kids right now, but the number one cause of depression and suicide in young girls, and it's because of social media and appearances and stuff, and the Kardashians and that whole look and that whole plastic surgery thing is contributing to it. So anybody that is trying to be against it, I am okay with. All right, let's get into some freak accidents.
So for some pre-Mother Knows Death listeners, for our Gross Room members, we had covered a story on June 1st about this insane freak accident where this 6-year-old girl was playing with a ratchet strap and it suddenly one end of the strap went out of the car window, wrapped itself around the drive shaft, around her feet, and cut her feet off. And then she had to go to the hospital and doctors were able to reattach her feet, which... Can you even believe that?
Well, the whole story is crazy because the dad was, I think when we covered it the first time, because how old is she? She was 7?
She was 6 and now she's 7.
Yeah, so we're like, I remember us saying, well, why was a 6-year-old in the front seat of a car anyway? Like, there's multiple things that went wrong in this case for sure. But the dad was driving the car and he said that the girl said, like, Daddy, I'm bleeding. And he looked down and saw that her feet were literally amputated on the floor and drove her right to a local hospital. They were just so happened to be pretty close to a hospital. But yeah, absolutely amazing that they were able to reattach her feet.
So after a 35-day hospital stay, 6 surgeries, and months of physical therapy, this sweet angel was able to perform as one of Mother Ginger's kids in the Nutcracker with her sister.
Isn't that just so cute? I love hearing like stories that turn out well. Yeah. So because God, and it's great when accidents like this happen to children just because they are able to recover so much faster. Could you imagine if something like that happened to one of us? We would be like still crying in the hospital bed, right? And this kid just,
Oh, yeah.
I love kids' resiliency is so great.
No, it's cool. And she was able to practice her performance in a wheelchair, and then she performed it the night of with a walker. So she kind of was able to do it a little better than night of. And it's awesome to see that she was able to do something really fun and not let this alter her life forever. So this is definitely the one of the sweeter updates from a horrific story we've covered.
Sometimes we have good updates.
Yeah, so on to this next one where this influencer, orthodontist and influencer Dr. Kara Hodgson was on a trip to Thailand when she was accidentally electrocuted by power lines, ended up blacking out, and was rushed to the emergency room where she was for 10 days.
Well, what's interesting about this is that she really wasn't electrocuted, because when you're electrocuted, you're killed. So she had an electric shock. I don't know how she had access to power lines. I mean, sometimes we'll be walking around the neighborhood and stuff, and I see a power line on the ground, and I'm just like so scared. I'm like, don't go anywhere near that. But I mean, maybe she walked over it. A lot of times it's just like laying in a puddle, and you walk through a puddle on the other end, and water conducts electricity. So it sounds like she got a nasty shock, though, and it's always really scary to be in another country and have something horrific happen to you that you need to go to a hospital, just because you don't know what their medical system's like or how you're going to pay for it, because healthcare isn't free in all countries. It's just really scary situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think just in general, going to a hospital in a different country is a scary experience because you don't know what they do over there. So she said she's lucky to be here today, and it was the worst 10 days of her life. So she seems to be recovering.
Yeah, that's so scary.
But our last freak accident is something truly horrible. So these parents were taking their 6-month-old baby to a local hospital because they believed the baby was having breathing difficulties. And while they were driving, an SUV blew a red light, smacked into their car. The people that hit them got out of the car, fled the scene. So they have no idea who did it right now. As of recording this, there was still nobody arrested for it. But the parents ended up getting out with minor injuries, but the 6-month-old baby ended up dying. So it's unclear if the child died as a result of whatever issue that they were taking the baby to the hospital for, or if the accident kind of just finished it. So it's really sad to hear that.
Yeah, so they'll do the autopsy, and I mean, this is the unfortunate thing with stories like this. We're probably never, we might, just because there's a person that hasn't been caught yet, and maybe they'll update us with that and then give us an update about what happened with the autopsy. But they'll be able to tell if it was because of blunt trauma from the accident, or if it was because of some kind of, I mean, a lot is going around respiratory wise, RSV virus, COVID, of course, and the flu. There's a lot of pediatric flu cases now. And so yeah, it could, I mean, if the baby was like that bad and not breathing that bad, it could have just been coincidental. However, you never know. And it's, I mean, think about getting T-boned by a car, or just getting slammed by a car, and how bad that hurts for an adult, let alone a 6-month-old little baby. That's what, 30 pounds, or not even, maybe, I don't even know. It's just, it sucks so bad. And it must suck for the parents to have survived something like that. And
yeah,
I just can't even imagine what some people go through. It's horrible.
Yeah, and it's really gross that they just left the scene without
people
doing whatever.
Do that all the time. It's very weird. Like, you're going to get caught, trust me. Like, your car is going to be messed up. They're going to be able to, there's video everywhere. Like, why would you ever think that you're getting away with anything? There are cameras everywhere. It's just, we have a good camera story a little bit later, actually, under violent crime, that I think about watching that kind of a surveillance video. This episode is being brought to you by Stink Bomb. So Christmas and holiday time is over, and now, of course, the day after Christmas, what do we start celebrating, Bree?
Valentine's Day.
Exactly. So we're like hopped from one to another. And this Valentine's Day, Why don't you give your loved one something a little bit different? How about you give a fruit basket of stink bomb?
So Stink Bomb has these awesome gift sets. One of them's fruit basket. It smells so delicious. It's apple, orange, banana, and grapefruit. It's the perfect little gift you could give to your Valentine. They also have some sexier scents like coffee, lavender. There's a limited time Irish cream if you have a ginger in your life like I do. So I definitely recommend Stink Bomb is the perfect Valentine's Day gift. You could use code MKD15 at stinkbombodorBlocker.com for 15% off of your purchase.
All right, so let's start with violent crime.
Okay, this is a groundbreaking story. So Gypsy Rose Blanchard has been released from prison. Are you familiar with her case? I know I've subtly mentioned it before.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about it all the time, but I'm not as... You tell the story because you know it so well.
Okay, so this is the most famous case of Munchausen by proxy. Munchausen by proxy is a psychological condition that causes a caregiver to basically fake illness in another. So we often see this with parents and children or people taking care of elderly patients where they'll exaggerate the symptoms of another.
So to get sympathy from people, right?
To get sympathy.
So wait, before we get started, so Munchausen is when you try to do it for yourself?
For yourself,
okay.
Yeah. And then Munchausen by proxy is when you're faking illness in another.
Usually like a kid, you're saying.
Yeah, so this is the most exaggerated and famous case of this. So starting as an infant, this woman, Dee Dee, had her child who's named Gypsy Rose. And as an infant, Dee Dee insisted that the child was experiencing sleep apnea. So this was kind of the first time we have recorded note of these fake symptoms. So as Gypsy grew into an older child, her mother stated that she had seizures, asthma, hearing and visual issues, and would bounce around to different doctors. It's called doctor shopping or medical shopping. So nobody could kind of be on her case. She was getting prescribed all these medications she didn't need. It even got to the point where she was getting surgery she didn't need to have. Absolutely crazy. So then when Gypsy Rose was 8 years old, her mother falsely diagnosed her with leukemia and muscular dystrophy. So because of that, she had her in a wheelchair and had her put on a feeding tube. So this poor girl has absolutely nothing wrong with her.
Wait. So this is where I get lost on the story. If she doesn't really have that shit, who's giving her a feeding tube? Like, you can't just go to the doctor and be like, yo, I want a feeding tube, right? Like,
exactly. So they're saying that the mother bounced around. So they had moved to Missouri when Gypsy was in like Lillian's age, like 11 or 12. And she had said that all of her medical records had been destroyed in Hurricane Katrina, so they had to go based off of what they said. But why weren't these doctors doing their due diligence and calling the other doctors' offices?
It doesn't even matter, though. Like, let's say you have a person off the street and there's no other way that you can call in. Because that happens sometimes. You have people that come over here from other countries and stuff. You don't have access to their medical records. But, like, there's things called blood work and imaging and I mean, I guess if she was she like starving the kid and everything? Because her blood work would be off for sure. And if she was malnourished, I just don't see what blood work. If she got blood work, you can't fake leukemia. You just can't fake it. So that's where it's all over the place. And I don't even know if necessarily she was telling the doctors she had leukemia, but that's what she was telling everybody else. And when they moved to Missouri, they had Habitat for Humanity build them a house. So there was like all this fraud going on besides that. They got free trips to Disney World. They got all this stuff. So the older Gypsy Rose gets, the more advanced it gets. She shaves her head. There's this claim that all this medication was rotting her teeth out so badly that she had to get a bunch of teeth pulled. So it's really unfortunate. And then all the neighbors thought this. And so at the same time, the mother is lying about the age. So when Gypsy Rose is 15 years old, she met a man at some science fiction convention, I guess they went to, and ran away with him. And the mother was like, you're a minor, got her out of the situation, telling her she was 15, but she was really 19 years old. So this girl doesn't even know how old she is. So
time goes on and Gypsy's starting to get hip to it and testing the waters. She gets out of the wheelchair and is like, I can walk perfectly. Like, I don't even understand why I'm in this wheelchair. So she starts getting hip to it, and she meets this guy named Nicholas Godejohn online, and the two of them form a relationship. So this relationship goes on for a few years, and eventually they agree they're going to kill her mother.
Okay, and I don't see anything wrong with that. Okay, let's just put this out there.
So in October of 2012, they start their relationship, and then in June of 2015, Nicholas Godejohn lives in Wisconsin, comes to Missouri where Gypsy's living, waits until he gets a call that the mother has gone to sleep, comes in the house, Gypsy gives him a knife and gloves, and he stabs the mother to death 17 times. So Gypsy didn't actually kill her, the guy did. But she was there and assisted with it. And then after that, they had sex in her bed.
Yeah, that's
weird. And then they posted on Facebook 3 days later. So Gypsy and Dee Dee shared a Facebook page. And Gypsy and Nicholas post on the page, "The bitch is dead. I fucking slashed that fat pig and raped her sweet innocent daughter. Her scream was so fucking loud. LOL." That's the Facebook post. So all these people that think this is a handicapped teenager are like, what the heck is going on? And then they go in the house and find the mother dead.
Now, why?
And then they find Gypsy Rose later.
Why didn't Gypsy Rose and the boyfriend? I mean, I get like wanting to kill somebody for doing something like that to you, but like you should probably try to go through the proper channels first before you do something that drastic. Because did they try to like handle this through the police and they were ignored? Like what?
I don't think Gypsy ever did. There's allegedly a note from 2011 that one of her doctors had noted they thought that she was a victim of Munchausen by proxy, but nothing was done about it. She had confided in one of the neighbors that she thought she was being abused, but those people didn't do anything about it. So I think it was a case where she started getting feelers like, is anybody going to help me? And then nobody was helping her. So she just took it to absolute drastic measures. And God knows the emotional brain damage she had from going through this her entire life.
So the boyfriend was the one that killed the mom. So he's in jail now, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So what ended up happening was they both, after the murder, they had gone back to the guy's house in Wisconsin where they made the Facebook post. They quickly found them there because you could see like IP address and everything. So they were both arrested. Gypsy ended up pleading guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 10 years. The boyfriend was sentenced to life in prison. So why this story is relevant now is because she had served 85% of her sentence and was finally granted parole. So she is now a free woman. The boyfriend's in jail for the rest of his life. She had said in a 2020 interview that she felt freer in prison than she did under her mother, which is like so horrible. And now she's married.
To that guy?
No, she's married to a different guy that wrote her letters.
So here's my question. Why? I understand that the boyfriend's in jail because like, even though you were trying to protect your girlfriend, like you can't just kill somebody. Okay. That's understandable. But I don't understand why. I thought like if you were a child that was a victim of abuse, that there was some kind of like leniency for killing the person that was abusing you. And she didn't even do it.
Well, I think her leniency was the lesser sentence because there's a lot of people, including myself, that I don't think she deserved to go to jail.
No, I don't either.
I think she should have been put in a treatment facility to overcome her 20 years of trauma and try to work through that. But instead, she was put in jail, and now she's kind of this like pseudo celebrity. I mean, we're talking about her, but there's a 6-part Lifetime special coming out about her starting tonight that's going to be absolutely insane, where she tells her whole side of the story.
Oh, it's like a documentary style?
It's her whole side of the story and how she got married and met that guy and everything. So I'm really fascinated to see this. I really hope we don't see her come back up in the press for something else negative in the next couple of years.
I just don't like that. Like, it's not like you abuse a kid their whole life. I mean, that's like serious abuse. And then she like, if it was a normal situation, the girl probably never would have killed her mother. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so ridiculous.
Absolutely. And that's why I feel so many people are on the same page where they're like, I don't even think she should have been in jail. I think we can all agree the way it was handled was not the right way and we shouldn't be murdering anybody. But there's something to say about being a victim for so long. There's only so much you could handle. And then one day you finally realize it and you start reaching out to people for help and nobody's helping you. And then you find the one person willing to help you. And she didn't even know that the guy was going to fully go through with it and kill her. And then he did. And that's kind of on him for helping. But I feel bad for her in the end.
Yeah, totally. All right.
So it's kind of nice to see that now she's 32. She's getting freedom. She could go on possibly to live as normal of a life as somebody in her situation can.
All right. Let's lighten things up with the pastor in North Carolina that tried to put his wife's coworker's head in the fryer at McDonald's.
So this woman was training to be a manager at a McDonald's where she said the employees were, quote, disrespecting her. So she called her husband to come in and help her with the situation. He comes in, punches the guy a bunch of times, and then tries to stick his head in the deep fryer at the McDonald's restaurant.
And this is what I was saying. Like, so in the article, it says that the cops were looking at the surveillance video. And I'm like, could you just imagine some of the videos that police officers and investigators have to look at? And this one is like, oh yeah, he did try to stick his head in a hot oil deep fryer, which would have been insane actually to get as an autopsy. Like, the person would have been deep fried like some chicken nuggets or something. It's just so crazy.
Let's just be thankful it didn't get to that point, because I don't even want to visualize what a person with a deep fried head would look like.
See, this is all I do. Like, every time I hear about these injuries or potential injuries, I'm just like, oh wow, like what would that look like? It would look like pork rinds or something on the outside. It just would be crazy looking. All right, so when we went to Key West this week, we stopped in Miami for the night, and we were at a hotel, and Lillian had a box of M&Ms, and she was on the patio of our hotel, or the balcony, and she says, "Can I throw these over the edge and see what happens?" We were on like the 12th floor or something, I don't know, and I was like, "No, you can't do that. What if you hit somebody down there?" And she's just like, "It's an M&M, it won't hurt." And I was just like, "Nah, dude, that's not cool. You don't do that." And here that's why I'm kind of giggling, because the story came up that there was an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old that were on the 32nd floor of a hotel in Times Square and were throwing bottles over the edge, and the bottle hit a woman in the face and gave her like a laceration on her face, or like an incisional wound from the broken glass. But I just asked Gabe, I was like, do kids like not know that would be really bad? Or because the reason I'm asking is because the 11-year-old didn't get in trouble because of her age, but the 12-year-old got arrested. And
yeah, that was so ridiculous. And I'm also like, so this, at first I thought it meant like water bottles, which obviously could really hurt somebody if they're full. But no, it was glass bottles. So what kind of glass bottles? Was it a whiskey bottle full that's pretty considerably heavy? Or was it an empty soda bottle? Like, where are they getting these glass bottles?
Yeah, that is true. Like in a hotel. Well, the mini fridge? Were they
like the little airport bottles?
They're like on their parents' dime. Like, this hotel we just went to, the kids opened up, because the first hotel we went to had like popcorn and it was free, right? So the kids were like, oh, yeah. The second hotel we go to, they opened this cabinet and there's like all these mini bottles of like vodka and, all this stuff. And we were like, don't touch any of that stuff, because it's like $50 for a box of candy or something, right? And what were these kids like emptying out like all of these mini, like, I don't know, the parents weren't in the room and they were emptying out hundreds of dollars of mini alcohol bottles and like throwing them over the edge or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like, are you more pissed that your kids throwing the bottle over the balcony, or that you just got charged $37 for an airport bottle of Tito's out of there?
Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it's not funny though at all.
No.
I just am trying to figure out, like, does a kid, I mean, Lillian was trying to throw M&Ms, and clearly like an M&M isn't going to do the same damage as a vodka bottle, right? But like, what do they really understand that? Like, because I could see being a kid being like, oh, that would be really cool if it hit the ground, and just not thinking like, well, what if it happens to hit someone in the face? Unless they're just like, Dexter kids or something that are assholes and that they were trying to hurt somebody. But I don't know. It's just that age is still, their brains are still a little iffy.
Let me tell you, I've always been afraid of things falling from the sky in the city, and because I saw this episode of the show Broad City where this girl was just like walking down the street going to a job interview, and a little drip from a window air conditioning unit dropped right in her eye, and she got this infection. Like, it was
got
dramatized.
Legionnaire's disease and like died.
Basically, like they dramatized it for the show, so her like half of her eyeball or face was green from it. But ever since then, I'm like, just the smallest thing could hit you and change everything.
Yeah, it's true. All right, so this next story, I didn't know what category to put it in because technically it's probably an accident, but because the mom is such like a negligent asshole idiot, I don't even know what to say. A kid died. So do you want to tell them a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, this woman was with her 2 children, and they were trying to catch a bus. So she told her kids there was a train sitting idle on train tracks. So she tells her kids to hurry up and run under the train so they can make their bus. So the first kid goes under and doesn't have an issue, and the second kid gets under it, and then the train starts moving and is killed. And the first kid ended up being wildly injured from it, but a child is dead.
Yeah, and the mom looks a little off in the picture, I have to say, but I don't know what's going on there, because you can't be all there if you think that's a good idea ever. And imagine the other kid seeing his sister get smushed to death by a train was probably really lovely. Like, you just hear a kid got hit by a train, but like, that looks horrendous, traumatizing. Nothing that anybody should see their family member looking like that. So kudos to mom of the year.
Well, she's found guilty of 2 charges of child abuse, and now she's been sentenced to 6 years, which is 6 years enough for this? It wasn't necessarily intentional, but
but you're
don't
just
really
like,
trust her judgment.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is this the first time they did this? Is this like what else is she doing that you have to say, like, you're not doing the right thing. You shouldn't. I mean, 6 years isn't shit. Like, I don't know. And I mean, she said she felt bad about it. I'm sure she does feel bad about it.
Well, I would hope you would feel bad about that.
Well, that's why I said I didn't know what the category to put it in, because I don't think she was just like, yeah, I'm going to have my kid go under a train and get ran over by a train today. But there has to be a certain level of responsibility for an adult to put your kid in that situation.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on to, we have a lot of medical news today, which is, the categories just vary so much from week to week. So a lot of good medical stories, though, that we want to share with you.
Yeah, first we have this really disturbing story out of a hospital in Oregon where a nurse had allegedly been replacing fentanyl IV bags with tap water. So, can you explain exactly what was going on?
I mean, I'm not a nurse, so I don't know the access that they have. I thought these bags were like pre-filled with whatever it was supposed to be with, and they hooked them up to the IVs and everything. But I don't know if there's a way that they can empty them and put other stuff into them. But apparently, a nurse was probably stealing the fentanyl that they were supposed to be giving a patient and instead substituting it with tap water. And the way that they figured this out was that they did autopsies on these people and found that they had like weird infections and that came from tap water. It also sucks because these people were prescribed fentanyl in the hospital, which means they were in a significant amount of pain and they weren't being given it. They were being given water instead. And I don't know. Did Mom send us this story?
Well, yeah, she did. So good job.
Shout out, Mom.
This caused dozens of patients harm, and some of them ended up dying from the weird infections they were getting from the non-sterile tap water.
You know what I love about the story? It's like a hospital in Oregon, they won't name the name of the hospital. Like, really? Because guess what? If I was living in Oregon right now, I'd want to know what hospital was doing that, because I certainly wouldn't want to go there.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking at a holiday party last week with somebody about the good nurse case that we've covered so many times, and how the hospitals will do anything to avoid the PR crisis, including just transferring a serial killer nurse to several different hospitals so it's not their problem. So
yeah,
I'm not surprised at their name.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's disgusting.
All right, this is probably one of the more shocking cases of the week. There was a priest. This was in the Czech Republic. And he got a tick bite from, and what happens is in certain areas of the world, you could get different infections than in other areas of the world. And where he was living in the Czech Republic, there is a tick-borne virus that you can get that causes tick-borne encephalitis. And you actually can't, if you get bit by a tick in the United States, you can't get that here. So that's always something that you have to take in consideration when you travel to other areas, that they have different organisms. Even if you live in New Jersey and you travel to like Arizona, there's different fungal species out there than there are here. And it's just, that's why they always ask you if you were traveling, because if you have some weird infection, they want to know where you got it from. But so he gets this viral encephalitis, which causes, encephalitis is just like an inflammation on the outside of the brain, and it could cause symptoms anywhere from like confusion, headache, minor things, to severe things like psychosis and having delusions of things that aren't real. And for whatever reason, he ended up cutting his penis off, and he had a meeting that he didn't show up to. So EMS was sent to his house, and they showed up and they found a guy laying there with his penis amputated in a pool of blood. And when he got to the hospital, they were like, okay, like, why did this guy do this? They're trying to investigate, because obviously that's like the last thing that a man would ever want to do. And they found out that he had encephalitis and that he had an infection caused by this tick-borne illness. Crazy.
Yes. This is a wild story. I would have never thought a tick bite would have transferred into this type of action.
I mean, like, it's nothing to be scared of. Like, oh, if you ever go visit over there, like, you're gonna go nuts and start cutting off your body parts. Yeah. It's just like it doesn't usually get to severe psychosis like that, but it happens. So it's reported, but it's not common. Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's a crazy story. Let's just face it. It's a crazy story. All right. Another crazy, all these stories are pretty crazy this week, but this new mom was speaking out. She had a baby, and then she got pregnant again, and she thought that she had hemorrhoids, and which is like lots of people get hemorrhoids when they're pregnant.
But they're saying it's saying it's really common in pregnancy, which is something I feel like I've never heard before.
Oh yeah, it's just because of the extra weight on the vascular system. It's definitely common in pregnancy. It's super common in pregnancy.
Did you have pregnancy roids?
I mean, yeah, I guess I did. But it was just like a little one, but it went away. But people get really bad ones, really, really bad ones. Hemorrhoids are freaking horrible. So she kind of dealt with it while she was pregnant. And then after she delivered the baby, like, they didn't go away. And the thing is that when you have the baby and the extra weight of the heavy uterus is out, it's not necessarily going to go away altogether, but like that should start alleviating your symptoms. Just having the baby is kind of part of the treatment in a sense, if that's what was caused by. But they didn't go away, and she said something to the doctor, and the doctor was like, all right, well, it seemed like the doctor was like, you're gonna have to go like see somebody for this, because like you can't be having hemorrhoids. You could get all sorts of surgeries and treatments for them. And she was like, nah, I think I want to get a colonoscopy just to make sure everything's okay. Now, this woman's only 36 years old, and you're not even supposed to get a screening colonoscopy till you're like 45 now. And the doctor says, okay, we'll get you one. We'll check it out. Sure. And the day before she goes to get the colonoscopy, they say to her, oh, it's going to be $600 because the insurance doesn't cover it because you're not ready for a screening colonoscopy. You're not old enough yet. So luckily she was in a position. So number one, she felt so strongly about getting this colonoscopy and she was in a financial position to pay for this. She gets the colonoscopy and right afterwards they were like, you have a 4-centimeter mass in your rectum, which is huge for a rectal tumor. And it's probably cancer. We're just trying to warn you. We're waiting for the path. They technically like can't tell you have cancer until they get the biopsy result back because there's like rare chances it could be a benign thing. But like when something's that big, it's just like, it's just not good, right? And you could, especially when you're an experienced GI doctor, like you know what a tumor looks like. So they were like just letting you know that this isn't good. And she ended up getting diagnosed with colorectal cancer, stage 3, which is pretty advanced. It was spread to a lymph node already. And now, you know, she has a little baby. She has to get chemo, radiation. And she's just saying like she was 36 years old when she got diagnosed with this. And she was 9 years away from being at the age to get screened for it. And I personally thought, and I could be wrong, I thought that like if you were supposed to get this at a certain age, then the insurance won't pay for it just because you want one. But if the doctors are like, she has hemorrhoids or some kind of issue, that then it would get paid for because they'll do it if there's a medical issue. Because one time I started getting mammograms when I was 40, but like when I was 38 or something, I just had like a weird rash on my boob. And the doctor was like, let's just get it checked out just to be sure. Cause sometimes breast cancer could show up like as a rash. And I got a mammogram done, but it was before I was due to get screened, but it was because there was something suspicious. Cause obviously most people get breast cancer after 40, but there's lots of people that get it before 40. So, but crazy story, right?
Yeah, and she was saying that she was really fortunate that she could afford to do the test anyway, because otherwise what would have happened?
She would have kept buying creams and doing whatever and maybe going to a proctologist to get a consult to get them removed, which just could have been months. You know, sometimes you make doctor's appointments and it's months away. And I mean, she was diagnosed at stage 3. So if she waited much longer, she could have had stage 4 and been terminal. I mean, it's scary.
Yeah, I mean, this is really sad. And I've been seeing a lot of articles lately that's just saying there's a rise in these types of cancers in younger people, going up to almost 20% in the last 2 decades.
It's because of the food we eat, like 100%.
Oh, yeah, totally. And it's just like, if that's really the case and they're seeing that in data, they really need to be adjusting the testing ages.
That they will eventually, but that will take forever because the thing is that the insurance companies rule the world and they pay. So if they start saying, all right, we're going to do them when people are 35, that means you're paying for colonoscopies for 10 additional years on a person. They just like, they don't want to pay it. Like it's just the way it is. And it sucks. I thought this next story was relevant to number one, me, because I drink bubble tea all the time. Or to Uncle Louie, because he just got diagnosed with this recently for the same kind of an issue. Do you want to talk about it?
I literally thought this was about you. So doctors in Taiwan had to remove over 300 kidney stones from a 20-year-old woman because all she drank was bubble tea and alcohol and pretty much everything except water. So she just developed all of these kidney stones and had severe or chronic dehydration. So I think this really relates to you because especially the summer of 2021, we went through getting 1 to 2 bubble tea every single day.
Wait, was that when I was writing my book?
Yeah.
I needed the chew to concentrate. But yeah, I drink tea a lot. But so my brother, he'll be happy that we're sharing his personal medical information with you. He just recently had kidney stones and went to the doctor. And I thought it was kind of weird. He's young. He's under 40. I'm just like, what's going on? What have you been eating and stuff? And he's like, I've been drinking a gallon of iced tea every day at work for the whole summer instead of water. Right? It was like something like that. And I was like, well, that'll do it. So, yeah, tea is definitely, I think it's hard to think this way, right? Because how do you make tea? You take water and you put a tea bag in it. But then when you put the tea bag in it, it's no longer water. So you can't substitute that liquid for drinking water. But for me, it's hard because I don't like to drink water. So if I have coffee or tea in the morning and the afternoon, then you kind of have to make yourself drink water in between because it dilutes down all of the stuff in your urine. Because if it concentrates, it like clumps together and forms stones. And sometimes they could get really big to the point where you have to get your entire kidney cut out because they can't get it out.
Yeah, I cut back. Well, you have warned me. I used to drink like a crazy amount of iced tea when I was a teenager, and you told me to stop. And Ricky actually had kidney stones when he was pretty young because all he drank was iced tea his whole life. So
I think it's fine if you drink iced tea. You just if you're drinking equal amounts of water a day. But I just think most people, this is like a silent epidemic. Is that I think there's a lot of people that just don't like drinking water. I don't like the taste of regular water. I just don't like it. So I could drink it if I'm thirsty, but just to sit there and chug it, it's just like very hard for me to do. And, a lot of people I talk to are the same thing. Like they don't have any problem drinking 2 gallons of iced tea or 2 gallons of coffee, but like 2 gallons of water is like it's just impossible to get down, right? So I think that's why you're seeing kidney stones in these people. But I just thought that was interesting, and I always love a good story about bubble tea.
Yeah, and this next story is really bizarre. So a new study has come out showing that sniffing women's tears may reduce aggression in men.
This is like one of my favorite stories of the week. They were saying that they already knew that tears that it lowers testosterone. So they thought that if they checked it, they know that the tears would lower testosterone, and therefore they wanted to check it in men to see, because if a man has less testosterone, they would be less aggressive. So they wanted to see like how they could take that knowledge and see how they could make it come to life in men, right? And the way they conducted this study is so cool. So they had 6 female donors from the ages of 20 to 25 years old, and they had to cry a lot. And they can't be tears like if I'm sitting there cutting an onion and I have like tears running down my face. They can't be like artificially produced tears. They have to be tears that come from like an emotional response. So they would have like these women like watch sad movies, or like they would just see my mom.
The Notebook.
My mom could have been like a candidate for this study because she cries all the time.
Me too.
But like so they get these women to cry, and they have to cry a lot because they have to collect a lot of tears. So then the next control is that they need a man that's really aggressive. So the way that they get to a guy to be aggressive is they get him to play video games that cause them to get agitated and aggressive. So they had 25 guys, and when they collected these tears and they had these men that were all like revved up from these aggressive video games, when they had them sniff the tears, the men, so they put tears in little cups and they put saline in little cups, and they didn't tell the guys which one they were smelling. They didn't know if it was saline, which would do nothing, or if it was like these female emotional tears. And when the men that sniffed the tears had a 43.7% fewer aggression than the other guys did that sniffed the saline. Like, how insane is that?
I can't imagine crying so much that it could go into a cup. Think about that.
I can imagine that, like, if someone died and, like,
yeah.
Because, like, obviously there's situations where you cry really, really hard a lot. But I don't know if I would be able to like reproduce that from a movie. I would be able to cry from a movie, but not like, like it's not my life. There's a certain sense of like, you know what I mean? But like my mom could 100%. She could turn on the tears.
You watch The Notebook and then tell me how you feel, Miss. I cried during the Barbie movie.
I actually, I won't watch The Notebook because I know Camille told me that it was really my sister-in-law. She was just like, it's bad. And she briefly told me what it was about, and I'm like, nope, I'm not watching that. I will cry so bad. All right, we had told the story a couple weeks ago about this woman that had this rare double uterus, and she was pregnant. And so having a double uterus is rare as it is. It's a congenital anomaly. So it means when she was forming as a fetus, her uterus didn't form properly, and it gave her her uterus was 2 cavities basically instead of 1. And that's rare in itself. But when she went to the doctor on this, I believe it was her second pregnancy, second or third. It was another pregnancy that she had. They did an ultrasound and saw that she had a fetus inside of each uterine cavity. And that's so rare. Like 1 in 50 million people get pregnant like that. So we told you about that a few weeks ago, and she just gave birth to 2 healthy babies.
Yes, 2 healthy babies. The first was born on December 19th. The second was born on December 20th. They were about 11 hours apart. Both weighed 7 pounds and healthy. They were saying the last known case of this, the woman gave birth 26 days apart. Like, how much would that suck to give birth and then have to wait a month to give birth to the second baby?
They're not what people would think of traditional twins. Like, you have to think that this woman was pregnant with these 2 twins that were conceived on 2 different times. They're 2 different babies. They're not identical twins. They're not even fraternal twins. They're 2 separate sexual encounters, and 2 conceptions occurred. It's so crazy. So in theory, and this has happened before, there's been documented cases of this, that you could, have sex in January and get pregnant, and then you could have sex in March and get pregnant again in the other side. It's so nuts. I mean, it's really cool, actually.
We also, this isn't a full story, I just wanted to mention this, that we have a cool local story too, where this woman delivered twins, and one was born December 31st and one was born on January 1st. So the babies have 2 different birthdays in 2 different years.
Yeah.
Which is
and she lives in my town, which is so cool. I was like,
and the doctors were like, hold on a couple.
Yeah, close your legs.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool too, though. It's just it's a cool story to tell. Like, twins are always like, I'm older than you, but it's, I mean, you know what? It's going to be a pain in the ass for the mom, just because they're always like, when's your kid's date of birth? And it's easy when you have twins usually because they have the same birthday, but it's like, this is like this whole big thing for them now. Different years.
Well, yeah, and I saw the one twin was born at 11:48 p.m., so just missed the mark, and then the other baby was born at 12:28 a.m.
Oh my god!
So they're only a half hour apart, but it's so nuts. That's crazy. Like, you couldn't even. It's a cool story.
It is a cool story for sure. All right, this next another cool research that's going on is that there have been studies in pigs that show that this new thing that they made, which is a vibrating pill that you ingest. So they give it to the pig, and the pill goes down into the stomach. It's coated with a special thing that cannot start vibrating until the stomach acid hits the outer coating of it. And the vibration is supposed to give the body and the stomach the sensation of fullness. And these pigs that they've been giving it to about 20 minutes before they eat, they ate roughly 40% less than pigs that did not use the device.
Did we talk about a pill in the last couple months that was a vibrating pill to help people go to the bathroom that were constipated?
Maybe.
I don't think this is the same thing, but the fact that there's potentially 2 different vibrating pills on the market is kind of a crazy thing.
I thought it was crazy. When I first started working as the PA, one day I got a foreign body, and it was called a pill camera. And I was like, what the
Oh,
fuck
yeah.
is this? Because you don't learn everything in school. So it's just like every day as a PA, you're learning, you get new stuff and you're like, okay, this is new. And it was like, yeah, when you get an endoscopy, it only goes down so far and it only goes up. A colonoscopy only goes up so far. And there's this huge segment of the bowel that they can't see because they can't reach it with the scope. So you could take this pill that's a camera that will kind of look at your GI system in the middle where they can't reach. And I just thought it was crazy. I'm like, this pill looks like really expensive and you just shit it out. That's it. Like it goes in the trash and it's the same like this vibrating pill. But I mean, that's like, this is like awesome because it's not a drug. It's kind of, it goes in and it's a manual manipulation kind of, and then you poop it out. You don't have to take any weird drugs that affect your GI system. I mean, listen, there's going to be some problems with this thing. I don't even want to think about what they're going to be, but there's always a problem with something, but I don't know.
Well, they're hoping this is going to be an affordable alternative to other weight loss dramatic surgeries or some pharmaceuticals. So it would be cool if this worked and seems like a more natural route to going about it.
Yeah, I'm interested in this, honestly. Like, I'll just pop one once a month and be like, hey.
But they're only testing it on pigs
Yeah.
right now. It's going to be a couple years before human trials start and it starts going from there.
And then I just thought, like, okay, so people are going to abuse this thing, and it's just there's going to be like obstructions because people took too many vibrating pills. Just trying to think.
Yeah.
I always try to think all the bad shit that could happen. All right, let's get to other death news. So this week, I told you we drove from New Jersey to Key West and back. And it was long, but we love our car ride, so it was fun. On the way to Florida, we always stop in Savannah. It's like, we love the city. It's awesome. And it was like a really shitty day when we got there, of course. Like, we're leaving New Jersey where it's cold and raining, and we want to go to Florida and Georgia and like nice warmer weather. And no, it was like 50 some degrees and raining when we got there for the whole day. So I start Google searching, like, what are things to do in Savannah when it's raining? Because we couldn't even walk around outside like we normally do. And I came across this museum, and it said it was a serial killer museum. And I was like, what? How come I never heard about this? And I looked into it, and I was like, this is really cool. It looks so cool. And of course they were closed. So I messaged the owner, and I said, hey, is there a way, like, are you there? Can I go there? And they were kind enough to let myself in as well as my family. And it was like the coolest museum ever. If you ever go to Georgia, it wasn't just a serial killer museum. And obviously anybody that has interest in true crime would just love this museum. They have major cases like John Wayne Gacy, huge collection of his artwork. And Ed Gein case, artifacts from the case, and it's just really cool. And the staff is just like so knowledgeable. They know way more about the cases than I've ever heard on any of these true crime shows or anything. And it was just like really cool. They had an oddities part in the beginning, which I think was like more interesting to the kids. Because obviously you're talking about like kids. You don't really want them knowing about like people getting brutally murdered. So the beginning of the museum was more for kids. They showed like circus freak stuff and sideshow attractions and really cool taxidermy of like two-headed sheep or something. Like just cool, like fun stuff like that. And then as you walk through, it got more gruesome. But the good part was that there was like 10 or 15 pinball machines lined up there that were free, that the kids just sat there and played while we were like looking at pictures of dead bodies and stuff. So it was really awesome. Just wanted to give a shout out to them. And
so what's this museum called for everybody?
So it's called Grave Face Museum, and it's graveface_museum on Instagram. So check it out if you're ever in Savannah. We're going back because I have that lecture
most important patient
conference, and I don't know the exact date. Are they even selling tickets for it yet? I'm not sure.
I don't know if tickets are for sale, but you could go on mostimportantpatient.com for some more info. There's some
you could sign up
dates
for the, like, they'll let you know, right?
Yeah, because I don't think we have a confirmed date for your lecture yet, but I believe it's the last week of June and ends right before 4th of July. So
yeah, so
that's a fun time to go to Savannah. It'll be a little toasty down there, but they have good ice cream everywhere, and it's a fun little town. They have great food, so amazing.
Yeah,
down
they
there.
do. I love Savannah, and just it's just so cool looking there. Like I feel like I could live there, honestly. I'm not into the swampy weather in the summer, but just the trees and the everything is just so cool. All right, and so going off of that, the last story that we have in Death News this week is that there's this guy on Instagram, and I love when people have these like super creative ideas for an Instagram account. And his is at JJ Slavin, Slavin, or Slavin. But this is a guy who's a recent college grad that thought it would be a good idea to recreate inmates that are on death row, to recreate their final meals. And he recreates them, he eats them, and then he kind of gives a critique and a rating on them. It's genius. Yeah. I love it so much. And he's covered like Timothy McVeigh,
which he did not like. Timothy McVeigh requested 2 pints of mint chocolate chip ice cream, and this guy did not like that was his meal. His favorite was Alton Coleman, a serial killer whose final meal, this honestly sounds delicious. I want to make it for dinner. Filet mignon with mushroom gravy, biscuits and gravy, fried chicken, french fries, broccoli with cheese, collard green onion rings, cornbread, a salad, sweet potato pie, buttered pecan ice cream, and cherry cola.
So this is one thing that this guy mentions that I think is really cool. He says that you rarely have the opportunity to select exactly what you are going to eat before you die, which is true. Like most people don't know when they're going to die. And it's honestly like a really cool thing to think about. Like when people know that they are going to die the next day at this time, what is the last thing that you would decide to eat? Yeah. So Maria, what would yours be?
I think I'd want the ropa vieja from Mixto because it's my favorite meal ever. And I'm assuming if it's like my last meal because I'm going to die, gluten's not an issue anymore.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, you know what? Like, since gluten won't be an issue for me anymore, I just want a whole entire like 12-pack of Hawaiian bread rolls. And that's all I'll eat is just the bread. I don't even want any regular food at that point. I'm just going to eat like Italian pastries and bread, all bread.
I think I want a full meal from Mixto. I'm being dead serious. I want the coconut mojito with the ropa vieja with the yellow rice and the tres leches, and maybe they have those really good arepas too. So I would like a full meal from there.
We gotta go there soon.
Maybe
I haven't been there in a couple years.
That place. I went for Valentine's Day last year, and it was delicious.
Yeah, but you can't have the tres leches.
No, but they have flan and stuff. Yeah. And that's also delicious.
Yeah, so check
everything there.
So check out this guy's Instagram. Again, it's at JJSLAVIN. I just think that it's just so creative. I love it. It reminds me of, remember that woman we spoke of a couple years ago that was traveling the world and going to cemeteries and finding Christmas cookie, or it was usually Christmas cookie recipes that were written on tombstones, but just in general recipes written on tombstones, and like recreating the cookies of different people. I thought that was so cool.
One thing I wanted to note about this is there's obviously people that like us that are super into the idea, and then some people that find it disrespectful and that it glorifies murders. But I thought a really good quote he had was, he said, "Not every story from our history is going to be sunshine and rainbows, but I don't think that's a reason not to share them." And I think that's really awesome way to think about that, and just sharing these horrific stories and being able to digest them and understand that things like this happen.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to them about at the museum too, just assuming that they get some shit because we get some shit all the time, right? So
yeah,
and just talking about that, like you can't just brush this stuff under the rug and pretend that it doesn't happen, and a lot of times you don't know who a specific story or situation is going to help someone. Even learning about the serial killers and stuff. Like I was trying to tell the kids, it's important for us to learn about this stuff, because that's when mommy says to you, like, don't get in the car with strangers and stuff. It's because this happened in real life, and we want you to learn about this because it's happened and we don't want it to happen again. So I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about it. You're not trying to make him famous. You're just trying to, sometimes people are so freaked out by it, they just want to learn from it.
Yeah. All right, so on to our questions of the day. I hope you guys really loved our holiday special. It was really fun to talk about some personal stuff and kind of knock on each other about some of our pet peeves with each other. So, our first question today is, can you tell if a woman has had a baby just by looking at her uterus, and if so, how?
Yes. So,
that's cool.
If a woman has a baby vaginally, the opening of the uterus is called the cervix, and the opening is usually the size, we'll say it's like pinpoint, but I would say it's more of like the size of a pen, or maybe even like a little bit bigger in diameter, a hole in the middle of the cervix. And when a woman has a baby vaginally, it looks different afterwards. It looks more like a happy face or like a slit. So we would describe it as like a pinpoint uterus is usually one that appears that a baby never came out of it, and a slit-shaped uterus is one that a baby has come out of it. Then you say, well, what about if a woman's had a C-section? Well, then she's going to have a scar on the anterior surface of her uterus because they have to cut through it in order to get the baby out. So, yes.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yes, it's cool.
All right, so what is your daily routine? Like, do PAs have a schedule?
So I don't work at the hospital right now anymore. Well, sometimes, but not a full-time schedule anymore. So my particular schedule is way different than it was when I was working full-time as a PA. But yes, when I worked as a PA at a couple different hospitals, even when I rotated as a student, we pretty much had the same schedule, which was Monday through Friday, like 7 to 3 or 9 to 5, like some kind of business hours pretty much. But different places, like I know that Penn started opening like on nights and weekends. Sometimes even when I was a student or I was working per diem, I would go in and work at night for extra money. And so the lab is usually only open during the weekdays and off on the weekends, but more and more the lab is opening on the weekends. That's like surgical pathology. And then as far as autopsy goes, it's the same thing. Most of the time at the hospital, the autopsy is open Monday through Friday. But then in certain situations, if a pathologist needs to come in to do an autopsy because, I don't know, if a person needs to get buried right away or something like that, it's usually like a religious request, then they would come in. Or sometimes like some kind of metabolic testing or something. CRISPR's on call she shares a call schedule with.
So typically when you get to work, like if you're working a normal schedule, what is there a specific order you do stuff, or you kind of just jump in wherever you left off the day before?
It just depends where you work, because different institutions do different things. But yeah, it's like there's really never, like, especially if you're in surgical pathology, it's like you have a countertop full of specimens that are from surgeries that are happening all day. So even if the rare chance that you clean everything up from the day, when you come in the next day, there's going to be stuff waiting for you, because people, like, there's no surgery scheduled at night in the middle of the night, but people come in and their appendix ruptured, their gallbladder, their colon burst, whatever happened, they got shot, and all that stuff comes in throughout the night. So in the morning, you still have stuff. It's just a constant flow of stuff coming in. And unless you have like a fully staffed lab that's appropriate for the amount of specimens that you get, which in my opinion is never the case, because they always just want to save money and not give you enough employees to help with the work. There's just always stuff. So sometimes like in the morning, if we get a colon, let's say a person had like a perforated diverticulitis and we get a colon from overnight and it's in a bag and it's that's called like fresh. It's just in a Ziploc bag. I'll take it out and put it like in formalin or the formaldehyde just to get it, just because number one, you don't want the poop that's in there like eating away at the surface of the lining. And number two, the formaldehyde kind of makes the cell structures look like more crisp. So I could kind of open that up, clean the poop out real quick and throw it in a bucket and like do it later. So there is like a kind of, let's prioritize what needs to get done first. Because, for example, if a person has a perforated diverticulitis, the problem is out of their body. Like the doctor knows why it happened. They surgically took it out. It's out. So like they don't need to know that very day, like what happened, because they kind of already know what happens. So that could wait. Whereas there's other things that are like more important, a skin biopsy that they're trying to rule out, like a reaction to a drug or something. That's like really important and needs to get done first. So that's the kind of schedule, but you just have to know like this is important, get this done today. This is an amputated leg for gangrene that could wait 4 days. Who cares? Like it's off. The person's fine. Like, you know, it's just like a constant juggling of what's important, what's not.
Okay, is there anything out there that still gives you the willies?
Besides E.T.
Your fear of E.T. is unbelievable.
No, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, what does the willies mean? Just like freak, like
gives you the ick.
Yeah, like hair does, not like wet hair. There's something that like even.
Really? Some people are so skeeved out when there's hair in food, and I'm just like...
No, I don't care if there's hair in food, but like, when I have to take someone's brain out, sometimes I'll use a comb to part their hair, I'll part their hair to make a part where the incision's going to be, so I don't cut their hair with the blade. And sometimes they have like dandruff and like that crust stuff in the head, and I wet their hair, so it's easier for me to comb. And like that kind of grosses me out. Like just, I don't know if that reminds me of like when I went to hair school or something, just like dirt, like it's not dirty. It's just like head crust. Like that, like wet hair kind of, I don't know. I mean, not that much, like sputum always grossed me out because I had to do, when I worked in microbiology and I used to have to put it on Petri dishes, and like, it's basically like someone coughing up a loogie in a cup, and they could get really nasty looking. And then I had to like play with it with like a Q-tip to put it. Ugh. Yeah. And it's like thick, and I don't like that. Like if Gabe spits or something, I'm like, do you have to do that? Like really, it's disgusting. So like,
that's how I feel about other people's boogers. Like I can pick my nose all day long, but I do not want to see anybody else's. It makes me want to throw up. I don't know what it is about it.
Yeah, it's like a thick mucusy thing. It's not like nothing really. There's nothing really that like freaks me out to the point where I can't like deal with it, I guess.
Okay, last question. Are we right or left-handed?
Oh, right. I paint left-handed though. I paint left.
Do you?
I paint left-handed a lot. But yeah, right. We're all right except Lillian.
And Ricky's is that the right word? Ambidextrous? Yeah. He can do both.
Yeah, I mean, I think, don't you think everybody could really do both if you sat, like, you can't write with your left hand?
I could if I really sat there, but I guess with him, it's, he writes with one hand, but he does, if he plays hockey or baseball, he does it with the other, which I couldn't swing a bat the other way. You know what I mean?
I think so. This is like an interesting thing I think about sometimes, because when I was in first grade, let's say it was like 1985, right? There was a kid in my class and he was left-handed, and I remember like it was like he was like the freak in the school. Like they just were trying to push him to do it the other way, and he was just hardcore with the other hand, like. And it was like this,
so weird.
It was weird, but now I just think they kind of, like in modern day, like you even, like they like let kids do what they want to do. If you want to bat this way, you want to catch this way, you want to write this way, whatever. So I think a lot of people that are my age, like it seems like there's more lefties now, but I think it's just that they're not forcing you to be a righty anymore. Like Lillian has what did she have last year? Like 8 kids in her class, and like 3 or 4 of them were left-handed, and I'm like, how is that even possible?
Well, it's such an innocent thing that doesn't affect anybody, so it's so bizarre to try to force somebody.
You know what though? Having a left-handed child, it is different. It's different, and it's hard. I could see why teachers would it would be easier to be like, because the scissors are a problem. Where the kid sits is a problem. Like if you get stuck eating next to Lillian, it sucks because her arm is bumping against yours, and like, you know what I mean? Like stupid stuff like that. I actually got her this book for Christmas that's like a left-handed notebook, because she would feel more comfortable like if the rings were on the other side of the notebook.
Oh yeah.
It's just, so I think for like hardcore teachers in the 80s, they were just like, we're not, and prior to that too, like, we're not dealing with this. Like you conform to us. We're not conforming to you, kind of thing. But it's like an interesting thing I think about.
All right, guys. Well, every Friday on the @MotherKnowsDeath Instagram, we post a little question box so you could leave your question to be possibly answered on a following episode. So thank you guys for an awesome start to the new year, and we are stoked to be back.
Yeah, and we have some great interviews coming up, so stay tuned.